Hello everyone, this is your game's Analysed episode number 2, and this game was submitted by the user with the YouTube username Destroyer666AU, and this was a 10-minute game which he played on the Chess Cube server. And he was black, so I just flipped the board, and his opponent played d4. And he replied with the Dutch defense f5. And now his opponent made a bad move, a3. More natural opening continuation would be to play g3, and after knight to f6, bishop g2, g6, knight to f3, bishop g7, castles, c4. Okay, but white played a3, and black developed with knight f6, which is good. And now white played b4, which was the idea of a3, but this creates weaknesses on c4 and a4. Also, a later a5 from black will be effective. The plan of putting the bishop on b2 is probably bad because it will be blocked by the d4 pawn. Okay, now black played e6. After bishop b2 he played d5. It's a good idea to blockade d4 because this will keep the bishop on b2 from becoming active, but it also creates a weak square on e5. Now white played g3 and black continued with knight on b to d7, and white played bishop g2, and now black played g5. This move prematurely weakens the king side. It weakens h6 and h5 because the g-pawn will no longer be able to control these squares. Also, the h5 e8 diagonal becomes weak because it can no longer be blockaded by the g6 by the g-pawn. Also, you shouldn't make too many pawn moves in the opening. Now white played knight to d2, and black continued with g4, another pawn move in the opening. This is not a good idea. It would be better to try to develop pieces than to try to gain space on the king side. Also, this is a bad move because white will now be able to open the h5 in his favor. Better would have been to play a5. This tries to exploit the weaknesses on the queen side. I know this is also a pawn move, but it comes with a threat to take on b4. So white will also have to lose time. Okay, after g4, white played e3, and then came better would have been h3, and after knight b6, aiming at the weak squares on the queen side, white could now open the h file in his favor. H takes g4, knight takes g4 with pressure on the h file, aiming at the h7 pawn. Okay, so after e3, black played h5, which is another weakening pawn move on the king side. It would be better to try to play a5 or a developing move. Now came knight to e2, trying to exploit the weakness on f4, which was created by an earlier g4 by black. White is also fine after h3, opening the h file. Notice that the h pawn cannot be captured because the rook on h8 is hanging. And another idea for white would be to play c4 to extend the diagonal for the bishop, or gain space with c5. Okay, now black played bishop to h6, planning to chop off the knight if it goes to f4, although black would after that be left with a terrible bishop on c8. Being blockaded by all of black's pawns on light squares. Okay, after that white played knight to b3, trying to get to c5, which is easily prevented by black's next move. Both h3 and c4 were strong alternatives to knight b3. So now black plays b6, preventing knight c5. Another try was knight to b6, planning to exploit the c4 weakness while preventing c4. After which knight c5, so knight b6, trying to prevent c4, and after knight c5, knight c4 followed by b6 would be fine for black. But black played the immediate b6, and then came queen to d3, aiming to prevent black from activating his bishop by bishop a6. Bishop b7. This is a reasonable move, preparing a later knight to e4. Now came queen d2. Well, I can't really see the purpose of this move. And black played knight to e4. And white replied with queen d3. Bishop takes e4, f takes e4 is another option, but black could try to use the f-file. After queen d3, black played rook f8. Instead, h4, gaining further space, is another option. After rook f8, white played knight to d2, aiming to play c4, and after a5 he played c3. Instead of c3, b5, gaining space is better. After c3, black played bishop a6. This allows b5, but it was a takes b4.